She looked up from her phone, smiled at me like she hadn't just rehearsed it in the reflection of the window, and said, "You scared me. I didn't hear you come in." That smile, it used to mean something. Now it was just muscle memory, an empty performance with nothing behind it. Like someone saying, "Bless you," without knowing if you even sneezed. I didn't respond. I walked past her, letting the grocery bag slide out of my hand and onto the kitchen island. The wine bottle inside thudded against the counter. Not the kind we usually bought. The kind she always said was too bold for her, but he liked it. I knew that now. She didn't ask why I was home early. That was the second sign. The first was the smile. The third was the way she casually locked her phone and slid it face down, even though she just glanced at it a second earlier. I opened the fridge. There were leftovers inside that I didn't recognize. Grilled salmon, roasted asparagus, a type of vinaigrette she claimed she hated, plated like a restaurant meal, covered in cling wrap, like someone had left in a hurry or expected to return soon. She leaned on the doorway, arms crossed, pretending to watch me. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The quiet was saying everything. "It's not what you think," she said too quickly. And that's when I knew she hadn't planned for this moment yet. She wasn't ready to defend it, just to keep hiding it. "I haven't said a thing," I replied. "You're acting like you know something." I shut the fridge door gently. No slamming. No theatrics. I just turned and looked at her, not blinking. "Don't talk to me like I'm dumb," I said. "It's insulting." She opened her mouth, closed it again. Her eyes darted to the hallway, the same one that led to our bedroom. The same one where his cologne had lingered in the air 2 nights ago when I came home unexpectedly to grab my charger. She didn't know I'd noticed. I hadn't mentioned it. I just stood there breathing it in, dying inside, and said, "I'll be back later." "You don't understand," she whispered. That was her line. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "Please let me explain." Just 3 words that meant, "Let me find a way to make this your fault somehow." But I did understand. I understood too well. I'd spent 3 weeks watching her change, counting how often she looked at her phone and smiled when she thought I wasn't looking, how often she disappeared into the bathroom during dinner, how she started dressing up for coffee runs, how she laughed at things I wasn't saying. I started digging carefully, quietly. I wasn't loud. I wasn't brave. I was just desperate. Desperate enough to read things no husband should ever read. Desperate enough to sit in the driveway last Thursday and watch her through the living room window as she typed out a message, bit her lip, and erased it, then typed it again. It wasn't until yesterday that I knew for sure. She left her tablet unlocked. I don't even know why I looked. Habit, maybe instinct. The conversation thread was pinned. His name wasn't saved as a name. It was saved as Ice Cube. Cold. Perfect. The last message she sent him was 2 sentences long. Just 2. "He thinks I'm at the dentist. Don't be late again." I took a screenshot. I didn't even feel my hand shaking. I just stood there, burning from the inside, staring at a betrayal so casual it barely deserved punctuation. I printed the message. And now, standing across from her in the kitchen, I reached into my back pocket, unfolded the paper, and slid it across the counter toward her. She stared at it without touching it. When she finally looked up at me, her face was pale. Hollow. "I can explain," she whispered. "No," I said. "You can't and you won't." And that's when I told her something I'd been holding back for hours. "You were expecting him tonight, weren't you?" The blood drained from her face, and I leaned in closer. Calm, quiet, deliberate. "Well, change of plans. I texted him from your phone while you were in the shower." Her knees buckled slightly. "He thinks you're meeting at the usual place." Pause. "But this time, I'll be the one who shows up." I watched her lips move, but no sound came out. Maybe she was trying to speak. Or maybe her brain just hadn't caught up to what I said. She reached for the edge of the counter like her body was slipping away from her and she needed something solid to hold on to. But I wasn't going to catch her. Not anymore. She whispered, "What did you do?" I looked her in the eye. "I took his invitation. That's all." The silence that followed was unlike anything we'd shared before. Heavier than arguments, colder than resentment. It was the sound of 2 people who finally saw each other for what they really were. Or maybe what we'd always been. She took a slow, careful breath and said, You didn't tell him anything, did you? I smiled, but there was no joy in it. No, that would ruin the surprise. That's when a fear crept into her face. Not guilt, not shame, fear. Like I was a variable she hadn't accounted for because I never reacted like this before. I didn't yell. I didn't throw things. I didn't even cry. I just existed in this new state of clarity, detached and focused, like a man who just found the last missing piece of a puzzle he never wanted to build. She tried again. Calvin, whatever you're thinking, don't. Too late. The room number was still in my pocket. 317. That's what he sent. Same place, same time. 317. I had stared at that text for hours, not because I didn't believe it, but because I did, because it felt like I was reading the script of a play where I was never meant to be cast. I left her standing in the kitchen. She didn't follow me. Maybe she couldn't. Or maybe she already knew the ending. I walked upstairs, changed into the same clothes I wore the day we got our mortgage approved. I don't know why. I just remember that day was the last time I felt like I had a future with her. By the time I walked out the door, she was sitting on the floor, clutching her knees, eyes blank. I didn't look back. The hotel wasn't far. I didn't rush. I didn't rehearse. I just walked through the lobby like any other man who had every right to be there. At the front desk, I gave my name, expecting to be turned away, but the woman smiled, slid over a key card, and said, "Welcome back, Mr. Fields." Fields, his last name. She booked it under his name. Not even an alias. Not even an attempt to hide it. As I took the elevator up, I thought of all the nights I had stayed home alone, believing she was at book club or visiting her sister. I thought of all the excuses she'd given me for why she didn't want to be touched, why she was too tired, why she fell asleep with her phone under her pillow. I thought of all the ways I let myself shrink to make room for her happiness. The hallway on the third floor smelled like stale fabric softener and room service fries. I walked to 317 and stopped. For the first time that night, I hesitated. Then I knocked. Not loudly, just once. No answer. I slid the keycard in. The green light blinked and the door opened. The room was empty, neatly arranged, bed untouched, lights dim. A single champagne bottle stood in a bucket by the window, half-melted ice pooling at its base. The TV was playing some muted nature documentary about wolves, but no one was there. I stepped inside and closed the door, and then I saw it. The phone charging on the nightstand, unlocked, open to messages. He hadn't left yet. That meant only one thing. He was still in the building. And before I could even decide what I was going to do next, the door behind me clicked. I turned and there he was, smiling like we were old friends meeting by accident. He walked in like he owned the place, like he hadn't just stepped into a room with the husband of the woman he'd been sneaking around with. He looked younger than I expected, not boyish. You could tell he'd lived, but he still had that relaxed confidence that comes from getting away with things for a long time. He closed the door behind him and leaned against it. No panic, no, just that casual half-smile. "Didn't expect you," he said, slower this time. "But I'm guessing you expected me." I nodded once. I didn't move from where I stood near the window. "I'm Liam," he added, like we were strangers at a dinner party. I didn't respond. The name didn't deserve to land. Not yet. Instead, I said, "How long?" He raised an eyebrow. "You really want to have this conversation? I wouldn't be here if I didn't." He walked past me, cool as ever, sat on the corner of the bed like it was his, and poured himself a glass of champagne. He offered me one. I didn't take it. 8 months, he said eventually. Maybe 9 if you count when it started emotionally. The word emotionally hit like a soft punch because that part always hurts worse. Physical betrayal is one thing. But the long conversations, the late-night texting, the inside jokes, the secrets, that's where the real break happens. I asked the next question even though I didn't want the answer. "Did she ever talk about me?" He looked out the window for a second, then back at me. "All the time. Good things." He took a sip. "No." My jaw clenched, but I didn't look away. I let the weight of it settle between us. "What did she say?" He set the glass down gently. "That you were nice, safe, predictable. A little boring, but not in a mean way. In a, I could do this forever, but I'm already dead inside kind of way." I laughed once, sharply, and nodded. "Sounds accurate," I muttered. "And what did you give her that I didn't?" He hesitated. Freedom, he said. Excitement. She said being with me felt like waking up after a long sleep. I let that sink in. And then, without thinking, I said something I hadn't even admitted to myself until that moment. She said that to me once about her ex, the one before me, that he made her feel alive, and I made her feel safe. He smiled faintly, and for a second it wasn't cruel. It was tired, like he'd been through this before. Maybe he had. You're not the first man she's told that to, he said. I looked down at the floor, where a woman's heel had left a faint scuff on the carpet. I don't know what I expected. Maybe I thought we'd fight. Maybe I thought he'd beg or gloat or apologize. But instead, we just sat in that room like two ghosts haunting the same space. She'll choose you, I said. He didn't answer. She always chooses the person who isn't in front of her. Still nothing. I turned to the door, reached for the handle, and paused. You two deserve each other, I said, not with spite, but with absolute certainty. And I hope that terrifies you. Before I left, I dropped a folded letter onto the nightstand. My handwriting, addressed to her, not angry, just the truth. Every line a quiet departure. I didn't slam the door. I didn't look back. But as I walked out of that hotel, down the stairs, past the desk, out into the cold evening air, I realized something. She would come home to silence. No scene, no dramatic speech, no finale. And for someone like her, that would hurt far more than anything I could ever say. She called 3 times that night. I didn't answer. I watched the phone screen light up, each call spaced 10 minutes apart, like she was giving me time to cool off before trying again. After the third one went unanswered, she stopped. Maybe she realized something. Maybe she didn't. Either way, I didn't care. Instead, I sat in the car outside our house with the engine off, windows cracked, and that same folded copy of her messages burning a hole in my pocket. The house was dark. She hadn't come back yet. Probably still at the hotel asking questions Liam wouldn't answer, trying to read between the lines of the letter I left. Let her. I waited almost an hour before going in. I didn't pack. I didn't leave a dramatic mess. No torn-up photos, no slam drawers. That's not me. I just removed the things that mattered. My birth certificate, laptop, the worn hoodie I always reached for when things felt too heavy. I took the quiet stuff, the personal stuff, the things you don't realize are missing until you really look. Then I took down a framed photo of our wedding that hung above the stairs. Not to keep, but to leave face down on the kitchen table. That would be the first thing she saw when she walked in. No note, no words. Just the picture we used to tell everyone we'd made it, now resting in silence like a closed file. I didn't go far, just enough distance to see her unravel. I checked the security camera from my phone later that night. She got home just after 2 a.m., still in the same clothes. Hair messy. She looked like she'd been crying. She paused at the door for a second before unlocking it, like she already knew something was off. She went inside, paused in the foyer, and froze when she saw the picture on the table. She picked it up slowly, stared at it, then set it down again. She looked around, like maybe I was hiding somewhere. Then she called out my name. Once, twice, no answer. Then she ran upstairs, checked the bedroom, the closet, the bathroom, and that's when it hit her. She dropped to the edge of the bed and sat motionless for 5 full minutes. No phone, no pacing, no tears. Just shock, pure, sinking realization that I hadn't just found out. I had left. The next morning, she texted, "Where are you?" I didn't respond. That evening, "Please, I need to talk to you. I can explain." I still said nothing. Instead, I did something else. I forwarded her last 6 weeks of texts, the ones I'd recovered from the tablet she forgot to wipe, to her sister, to her mother, and to our mutual friend Alice, who once told me she didn't believe Jenna was capable of lying. I didn't send commentary, no explanations, just the screenshots. Clean and cold. Later that night, I got a message from Alice. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Please let me know if you're safe." I was safer than I'd been in years. But the real hit came the next day. Her job emailed me. Not to apologize, not even to ask questions, but to say Jenna hadn't shown up for her shift and wasn't answering her work phone. They were concerned. I almost replied. I almost told them she was probably too busy chasing someone who didn't love her to show up for the life she built. But I didn't. Instead, I sat at a motel desk, opened my laptop, and began typing something else. I don't want her back. I don't want revenge. I want peace. And that begins by letting her world fall apart without lifting a finger. She made a choice. Now she gets to live in the version of herself that I was never meant to witness. The one that breaks not because someone hurt her, but because the safety net she despised is gone. It happened 2 days later. Mid-morning. I was sitting in the motel room's faded chair, the one that creaked every time you shifted your weight, sipping bad coffee from a styrofoam cup and staring at the wall like it might answer the questions I was too numb to ask myself. That's when I heard it. A knock. 3 short taps. Measured, like someone trying not to sound desperate, but failing. I already knew it was her. I opened the door and there she stood, Jenna, dressed in a navy sweater that hung too loose on her frame, hair pulled into a messy bun, eyes swollen from crying, but burning with something else entirely. Shock. Not anger, not rage, not heartbreak. Shock. Not because I opened the door, but because I didn't slam it shut in her face. You look tired, I said. I stepped aside and let her in without asking her to. She hesitated, but walked past me into the dim motel room that smelled faintly of bleach and worn carpet. She didn't sit. She stood near the edge of the table, her arms crossed like she was protecting herself from something she didn't fully understand yet. You laughed, she said. I did. You didn't even yell. No, she blinked. So that's it. I leaned against the door frame. There is no it. There's just truth. And now you have to live in it. She bit her lip. Her voice cracked. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I gave a soft laugh, not out of humor. You mean you meant to lie to me, just not permanently. She dropped her eyes to the floor. I was lonely. You stopped seeing me. You were always working. You never looked up anymore. You made me feel like I was background noise. I nodded. And instead of speaking to me like an adult, you gave your body and trust to someone who only had to show up and smile. That's not fair. No, I agreed. It's not. She finally sat down, hands trembling in her lap. I kept telling myself it wasn't real, that I was just trying to feel something again. That if I could just... I cut her off. You romanticized the betrayal because it gave you power, and I let you because I thought loving someone meant letting them drift if they needed space. She looked up, eyes wide. So what now? You disappear forever? No, nothing. I walked over, pulled a folded paper from the table drawer, and handed it to her. She opened it slowly. Her hand shook. It was the lease agreement for a studio apartment, not this motel room. My signature already on the bottom. She looked at me like she didn't recognize the man standing in front of her. You're serious? I'm done, I said. I don't want to fix what was built on silence and infidelity. I don't need an apology you don't even believe. I want something I've never had in this marriage. Peace. Jenna stood suddenly animated. So, I don't even get to try? That's it? You walk away and call it maturity? No, I said calmly. You don't get a try because you only came back after the world started seeing who you really are. You weren't sorry until there were witnesses. She slapped the paper against her thigh. Do you really think he means anything to me? Do you think I wanted to throw this away? I met her gaze, steady and unflinching. No, I think you wanted both. Comfort and chaos. You just didn't expect comfort to walk away. She went quiet. I picked up my coat, opened the door, and nodded toward it. You can stay here for a while. I'll leave. This place doesn't belong to either of us. She didn't move at first. Then, silently, she stepped outside. She turned back one last time, voice barely above a whisper. If you walk away now, you'll never know the whole truth. I smiled. I already do. And I closed the door between us. She tried to fix the damage the way people with no tools often do. Loudly, clumsily, and far too late. 2 days after she showed up at the motel, I ran into her again. Not intentionally. I was sitting alone in that quiet cafe on the corner of Fairview and Lee. The one with the mismatched chairs and the barista who draws little clouds in your foam. I'd been going there for years, but I always went in the mornings. This was the first time I'd gone in the afternoon. She walked in with her sister, Rebecca. I don't know if they saw me right away. I didn't move. I stayed at my corner table, sipping my coffee, pretending to read a news article I wasn't absorbing. They sat 3 tables away, close enough to hear every word. Rebecca looked like she was already exhausted with the conversation. Her arms were crossed, her expression flat. Jenna was leaning in, trying to win her over the way she used to win arguments with me, through selective truths and wide-eyed sincerity. "I know I made a mistake, okay?" she said, a little too loud. "But he's acting like I committed murder." Rebecca shook her head. "You cheated, Jenna. You lied to him for months." "It wasn't like that," she whispered, then raised her voice again. "It wasn't serious. It was just, God. It was a release." I watched Rebecca stiffen. She glanced around the cafe like she hoped no one was listening. But people were. Not obviously, not rudely, but you could feel the stillness. A room where one person is speaking too loud always creates a vacuum around them. Jenna kept going. "He wasn't supposed to find out. It was just something I needed to do for myself." "For yourself," Rebecca said, voice sharp now. "You mean breaking your husband's trust and sleeping with someone else? That was self-care." Jenna's face twisted. "Why are you talking to me like this?" "Because for once, you don't get to paint yourself as the victim." Jenna went quiet. I kept staring at my screen. My coffee long cold now. My heart not racing like it should have been. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even hurt. I was fascinated. It was the first time I saw her outside the version she had carefully curated for everyone. No makeup mask. No social media. No soft tone to spin the truth. Just Jenna, exposed by someone who knew her almost as well as I did. Then it happened. She saw me. Her eyes locked on mine like a needle through cloth. Sharp, sudden, precise. Her jaw dropped slightly. Rebecca turned, followed her gaze, and froze, too. I didn't flinch. I didn't wave. I didn't smile. I just blinked once and went back to scrolling. But Jenna wasn't done. She stood up, walked straight to my table, every step loud on that cheap tile. "Calvin, can we please talk?" People were watching now. "Not here," I said quietly. "No, here is perfect," she shot back, eyes flashing. "You want to make me look like a villain, right? Might as well give me the stage." "You gave yourself the stage," I replied. "I'm just sitting in the front row." She leaned closer. Her voice dropped into a private register, but her breath trembled with desperation. "I can't fix this if you won't even let me explain." I met her eyes. "There's nothing left to explain. You didn't just betray me, Jenna. You built a second life while I was building our future. Then why are you here? Why not run? Why not vanish?" I wanted to see what happens when someone with no script is forced to speak. She blinked, stunned, and I stood up slowly, pushed in my chair and said one final thing. "You always thought silence meant weakness. It doesn't. It's just what strength sounds like when it's done wasting its breath." And I walked out. No scene, no shouting, just the sound of a truth she couldn't rewrite echoing behind me. I didn't say anything publicly. I didn't post on social media. I didn't call her family or text her friends with some dramatic reveal. I could have. God knows I had enough screenshots and receipts to light a bonfire. But I didn't. I stayed quiet. I walked away. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. A week later, I found out Jenna had been busy. She'd started reaching out to people, not to apologize, not to take accountability, but to reshape the story, to reroute sympathy, to soften the edges of what she did and sharpen the ones around me. I heard about it from Kevin, a guy I hadn't seen in months. We'd worked together years ago and occasionally grabbed beers when our schedules aligned. "She said you changed," he told me over coffee, looking uncomfortable. "That you got cold, controlling, emotionally distant. That you pushed her away for months before anything ever happened." I stared at him for a moment. Then I nodded slowly. "And you believed her?" He hesitated. "Honestly, I didn't know what to believe. I just thought maybe you both had your side." There it was. Maybe you both had your side. That sentence sat with me all day like acid in my lungs, because there's always a side people lean toward when the story gets messy, and it's almost never the quiet one. People don't know what to do with silence. They interpret it however they want. By the end of that week, 3 more people had either texted me awkwardly or avoided me entirely. Friends I'd stood beside at weddings. Friends who had once said we were couple goals. Now suddenly unsure, hesitant, cautious. And Jenna, she knew exactly what she was doing. She wasn't trying to win me back. She was trying to survive the fallout, trying to keep her version of events alive just long enough to outlast mine. She even posted a photo, a quiet black and white picture of her sitting alone at a bench near the lake, a place we used to walk on Sundays. No caption, just a single broken heart emoji. The comments flooded in. "You don't deserve this. Whatever happened, you'll come out stronger. Some men never understand what they have." It wasn't until I saw the one from her coworker, a woman named Dana I barely knew, that something inside me truly snapped. "You're one of the kindest people I know. If he let you go, that's on him." As if all of this had been a misunderstanding. As if I had just decided to wake up one day and walk out on a decade-long marriage because I was moody. I didn't respond. I didn't comment, but I did something I hadn't done yet. I sent a single group message just to her sister, her mother, and one of our mutual friends who had stayed silent until now. I kept it simple, just the facts. The hotel, the messages, a photo of her with Liam that I hadn't shared until now, taken from the lobby security cam the night I showed up instead of him. No venom, no drama, just clarity. The responses came in hours later. From her sister. "She told me you were the one who left first. I can't believe her anymore." From her mother. "I don't even know what to say. I am ashamed." From our mutual friend. "I feel stupid for ever defending her. You deserve better." And still no message from Jenna until the next day. This one wasn't private. She posted a new story, a long one. It started like this. "People love to think they know the whole story. They see a few texts and think they've seen your soul. But no one talks about the slow breakdowns, the invisible wounds, the days you screamed inside your own chest, begging to be seen. I'm not proud of what happened, but I refuse to be painted as a villain in someone else's redemption arc." I didn't comment, but I read every word and I realized something. She wasn't trying to tell her truth. She was trying to bury mine. Not to protect herself from me, but from herself. Because if enough people believed her version, maybe she wouldn't have to sit alone with the real one. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something other than heartbreak. I felt resolve. The notifications kept coming for days. Little pings of sympathy or confusion. People wondering what really happened. People taking sides in a story they weren't even in. But I didn't answer them. I didn't try to explain. Not because I couldn't, but because I didn't need to anymore. You don't owe anyone a chapter they never helped you write. I moved into my new apartment that weekend. Small, clean, quiet, nothing fancy. A view of the city through foggy glass and the sound of traffic humming like a lullaby at night. It was nothing like the house we shared. And that was the point. I got a plant, one of those little rubber leaf ones you can't kill even if you try. I named it Monday because it was the day I decided I wasn't broken. I started walking again. Every morning. Just the sound of gravel underfoot and my own thoughts finally moving in a straight line. People asked if I'd ever get back with her. I didn't get angry when they asked. I understood the impulse. People love a redemption arc. They love a comeback, but not all endings need a sequel. Some stories are better left closed. Jenna reached out one last time. A short message, just 5 words. "Do you think we're done?" I didn't reply. Not out of cruelty, out of peace. Because I had nothing left to give her that wasn't already drained from me. She took what she needed, validation, excitement, distraction. I had finally taken what I needed, freedom. Freedom from wondering where she was. Freedom from trying to shrink myself to fit her emptiness. Freedom from fighting to be someone I wasn't just to keep someone who never really saw me. And with that, the silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was calm. Weeks passed. Then a month. I started writing again. Not about her. Not about the pain. Just words, stories, ideas that had been waiting in the back of my head for years, trapped under all the noise. I met new people. Some stayed, some didn't. But I wasn't trying to be anyone's answer anymore. Just a whole person on his own. One afternoon, I walked past that little cafe. The one where she'd confronted me, loud and trembling. I glanced through the window and saw a couple laughing quietly over coffee, fingers barely touching across the table. I didn't feel envy. I felt hope, because it reminded me of something I'd forgotten. Love isn't loud. It doesn't need to prove itself to anyone watching. It's steady. It's quiet. It holds your hand in the storm instead of becoming one. And maybe someday I'll find that again. But even if I don't, I already found something better.